Hello, I'm Dr. DonHebbard, and we are talking today about a series of lessons called Meet Your Family System. Family systems theory is the major theory that underlies marriage and family therapy. So I'm doing a series of lectures on this particular theory. We're just going to hit the high points. I'm going to give you a taste of some of the major pieces of this theory so that you can understand it. If you're training to be a marriage and family therapist, it'll give you a taste, just an introduction to the concepts. Or if you're just interested in how families function, then this will be just a starter for you. The difference between individual psychotherapy and marriage counseling or family therapy is the focus of treatment. With individual therapy, we're talking about obviously the focus on one person. The field of marriage and family therapy came out of a desire to look at people in relationships. In other words, we notice that when we take an individual and we put them in a relationship with their husband or wife or with their kids or with extended family, new and different things begin to happen. So family systems theory is a very powerful theory that's used to try and explain the dimensions of those dynamics. This particular lecture is just an introduction to the overall theory and a couple of things that I'll tell you about it. The way I try to explain the operations of the theory to my students is I want you to imagine that you're out on your back porch and there's a wind chime out there hanging down. Each one of those chimes has its own particular tone, but when you put the chimes together and the wind blows, then there is a melody, there is a series of tones that they make together that they can't do separately. And family systems theory is like that wind chime. We put a husband and a wife together and you get an interactional pattern, you get a set of tones. You put a family together and you get an interactional pattern, you get a set of tones. And so it is that, and each one of those is very, very different. And like an author and therapist, Richard Stewart, said many, many years ago, he said, for some marriages and families, the music is like the sound of a symphony, and for others, it's like the sound of rusty spikes on trash can lids. And so family systems is all about understanding those patterns. So a couple of things to get us started into just understanding it. The first one is what we're going to call circular causality. And that's the old idea that in Western thought, most of us were brought up in school and college, and in Western thought, we're linear. And that is A is going to impact B is going to impact C. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And so we're very much interested in this cause that, and you get that as an end result. Family systems theory is reciprocal in nature. It's circular causality, which is just a fancy term that says A is going to impact B, but B is going to impact A. So if this is a husband, this is a wife, he's going to do things that are going to elicit responses out of her. She's going to do things that are going to elicit responses out of him, and the two of them create a loop. And sometimes those loops are powerful and they're positive and they work really well. Sometimes those loops are dysfunctional and they're destructive and they don't work really well. And so family therapy, marriage counseling is about understanding those loops of interaction and those patterns of interaction that happen between people and doing some things that will promote the good ones and doing some things to interrupt the ones that aren't working particularly well. The other thing we'll say about this that's very powerful is, well, I'll ask you the question, who can interrupt the loop? Can he interrupt the loop on his side? Well, sure he can. He can make some changes and that's going to stop or it's going to change the loop. Can she interrupt the loop on her side? Well, absolutely. She could interrupt it. So the powerful thing about family systems is that change can occur at any point in the relationship process. at any point within the wind chime, you can get a different set of changes going on. So circular causality is one of the big ones as a part of this particular theory. The second one that I want to talk a little bit about is the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. By that we mean, I could introduce you to my mother and my father and my sister, and you could meet the three of them and then meet me and know all of us. But when you put the four of us together, you get an interaction pattern that is greater than just knowing my dad, my mother, my sister, and myself. And so it is then that there's a very old and famous statement at the foundation of the theory that says the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And the way I often explain this in class is I'll pick on a student and I'll say, let's take this student and we're going to take out a handgun and kaboom, we're going to shoot them. Now they're dead. I'm going to then perform an autopsy on them, and I'm going to lay out all of their systems. So you got the skeletal system, you got the nervous system, the digestive system, you've got the endocrine system, you've got all of their systems laid out here. A little gory, I know, and let's say I've got a personality assessment of them over here, and I've got their resume and their career and all of their accomplishments over here. I've got all their parts. But do I really have that person? Well, no, I've just got what's left over, you say. But the idea being, though, that what happens is when we put people in relationship together, when we put all the parts together, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so it is then that a family therapist, a marriage and family therapist, is going to be interested in what I call looking at the third person in the room. Oftentimes clients will come in, a couple will come in and they'll say, we need to visit with you a little bit about some stuff going on in our marriage. Or we need to talk to you a little bit about some stuff going on with our children or whatever. And they'll discuss with me their concerns. And the thing I will say to them at the end of that is, I am working with a third person in the room. And they kind of cock their head and wonder, what am I talking about? And what we mean by that is, I'm working with the relationship. And the relationship is going to be that unique entity that is the sum of what he brings and what she brings to the table. So it is then to just kind of introduce, as we get into these lessons, as you go forward and watch, we're going to be giving you just a taste of some of the major components of the theory. We're going to talk about roles in the family. We're going to talk about family rules. We're going to talk about subsystems in the family. And we're going to also look at a technique for developing a chart on the family called a genogram. So we're going to be introducing you in boundaries. We're going to be introducing you very simply to some of the major constructs of the theory. Each one of these is a part of a very huge and comprehensive theory that helps us explain how people interact in relationships. And so as you watch these, if you're training to be a therapist, this is not intended to be an exhaustive discussion here. It's simply kind of an appetizer to get you started in understanding these concepts and get you thinking like a marriage and family therapist.